She's a fashion blogger, model, and entrepreneur.
She's amazing.
The latest tips on fashion, beauty, wellness, travel, and her lifestyle. And now, here's the founder and creator of Not Basic Blonde, Walliser.
Hi, Cole. I'm so honored to have you on my podcast and you being extremely talented. And I'm just so honored and so excited to have you on.
Of course. Well, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much. And also you being all over the world, working with huge celebrities, world-renowned celebrities, working on and directing Miley Cyrus videos, Katy Perry, Pink, and all the famous singers and artists and celebrities. How did you even get to this industry and how did you start? Because I know you're from Canada. And
I am from Canada. I moved to LA many years ago, sort of before social media became a thing, to pursue directing. That was always my main goal. I started filmmaking in Canada and I realized that, okay, if I really want to launch my career, I need to be in LA. So I moved and I knew a bunch of dancers. I was in the dance world, and that kind of led to me doing little dance videos with them, some choreography reels. I edited a lot when I first moved to LA, just kind of did whatever I could to kind of build relationships and network. And slowly, one little step at a time, I did a little dance video for this person. They did that job. They brought me on. And it kind of it started with Miley. My job with Miley was a bunch of dance videos for YouTube. This is before celebrities were even really on YouTube. So it wasn't even nobody knew what it was going to be. We're hey, we want to do these dance videos with the crew from Step Up 2. Do you want to direct them? And I was yeah, of course. So we did a couple of those and they did really well. And kind of every little step, every time I got a new job, I tried to just do something a little different, a little bigger, a little better. And it's been like that for 15 years now.
That's incredible. And you had a videographer or background in film, or how did you decide just to pick this direction?
So I have a degree in psychology, which if my background wasn't blurred, it's sitting back there. As I was going to school, getting a degree in psychology, I picked up a camera. I've always been someone that loved the arts, that loved being creative, that loved making things, and for me, shooting something and then editing it together and then having this finished piece, I was just enamored with that process. And so I just bought a camera and I bought a computer and I started learning how to edit and shoot little things. And I would just pitch my friends who had businesses hey, let me do a video for you, kind of a thing. And I really just learned on my own. I'm self-taught. I didn't go to film school or anything. And then I was sort of at this during my time schooling, as I'm getting my degree, I'm learning how to do film. And by the time I got my degree, I was doing film enough where I knew I loved it and knew this was something I really enjoyed doing. And I kind of was at a bit of a crossroads of okay, I have my degree, I have this thing to fall back on. Now I can go pursue this to see if filmmaking can actually be a thing. So I gave myself a couple years. I was okay, take a couple years to figure out if this can really be a thing or not. And I really haven't looked back since.
That's amazing. And another incredible thing that you created is the GlamBOT, where it's world famous and you get to attend all the most famous events like Oscars, Grammys, E-News events, People Choice Awards, everywhere. And you get a chance to talk to all the huge celebrities like Brad Pitt and all the others. How did you come up with GlamBOT and how did you decide to do that?
Well, this is a common misconception. I did not invent the GlamBOT. So the whole camera system is actually used in what's called tabletop commercials. So it's often used in food commercials when you see a taco break in half and the camera swoops around, or a drink being poured slowly and the camera's whirling around it and it's in slow motion. That's the same technology as the GlamBOT. GlamBOT itself is a thing. So they did a camera test using the slow-mo technology on talent, and they're oh, this is really cool. We maybe want to do this on our red carpet show. And then they were we need someone to direct talent, to give them direction, to get them to, do some cool move or whatever. And they're we need someone that understands movement and choreography, knows how to shoot beauty, and then also has worked with A-listers. And so at that time, I had all of those three because of my dance background and my music background. I did a bunch of female pop star stuff. So I kind of satisfied all of those requirements. And I met a producer of red carpet shows like 8 years prior, and so he thought of me. He brought me in to have a meeting, and then they hired me to direct the GlamBOT. So at first I was just directing. I wasn't making any content. I would show up as this is like a directing job. I'd show up. It was really cool. I would talk to these celebrities. I'd get them to do cool poses, and the finished product would be the only piece of media that we were making. And then somewhere along the line in like 2019, I had someone like film a clip. The story is like Jackie Chan came up, I think in the 2017 or 2018 Oscars, and I've been a huge fan of Jackie Chan. And so I gave my phone to a producer and I was like, hey, I'm gonna ask him for a photo. If the timing feels right, if it feels okay, I'm gonna ask him for a photo because I'm a big fan, right? So I gave her my phone. I started directing Jackie Chan in the GlamBOT. He's kind of rushed, he's got to run off, so I don't ask him for a photo, and I'm like kind of bummed. And so I walked back to her and she's like, oh, she's like, I know you didn't ask, but I took a bunch of photos of you working with them, and I took a couple videos of you like giving them direction or whatever. I was like, okay, cool. So I went back home and I watched the footage and I was like, oh, this is really cool to see my interaction, to see his movement in like real time. And then I edited in the final video and I was like, oh, this is kind of cool, like a little before and after. And that was sort of like the birth of the GlamBOT behind the scenes, the content that I'm sort of most known for. From there, it's evolved. I was using a bunch of random cameras. I was using other stuff, but now I have a whole system of like cameras and microphones that I use to shoot this content. But that was kind of like how the content, which is sort of the most known thing that I do, came about.
And before you done this, like no one in the industry even tried to do that, and no one in this industry even thought about it, because it's such a cool idea. And I thought, like, I saw how you direct the stars and how they just like flip a dress or just turn, and in slow motion it looks so outstanding. It looks fantastic, but it's just that you invented, not invented GlamBOT, but invented the method. So
sure, yeah. It's sort of like, it's interesting because it's like, we've always known, like, Dave Chappelle had a skit about this, how everything is cooler in slow motion, right? And it's like, slow motion's obviously been used in like, movies and music videos to like great effect of like making a moment really cool. But this idea of doing it on the red carpet with all of these different celebrities, that goes to E. But it's just such a perfect storm of like all these different celebrities, all done up really nice. Like to shoot a little slow-mo portrait moment is just so cool. And then with like the GlamBOT technology of this robotic arm that moves, it just gives it this heightened effect. And it's been a really fun project and a thing to be a part of and to help contribute to, especially with all the behind the scenes content.
Yeah, it's absolutely gorgeous, the way it looks and the way the videos come out all the time after all these events. I'm always like amazed.
Oh, cool. Awesome. Yeah, the feedback has been great, which is quite lovely.
Yeah. And besides being extremely talented, you also have a business side that you built the full-time career out of filmmaking, out of this. So what's the best business advice can you give to someone who is like aspiring entrepreneur, who just starting maybe in the film industry, maybe just they're starting their own business? What helped you to thrive in the industry?
That's a good question, because if you open up the topic to be like all business, like I can very much advise on someone that like wants to work in like entertainment and like content. Like I think it's really important to just keep practicing your craft. Like when I started with a camera in my hand, like I wasn't good, you know what I mean? Like I didn't know a ton of stuff, but I enjoyed the process, and I knew making stuff would make me better at making stuff. So my goal was always, and even still to this day, I still instill this. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go do something, I'm going to learn, and then the next time I do it, I'm going to be better. So there's something to be said about continually making stuff to get better at, to sort of get to where you want to be. I've done that a lot with like, obviously like filming and editing and directing, but now I've been trying to like focus on like writing more, and the same principles apply. I'm like trying to write every day and trying to get better at writing and like learn how to create something on the page to then take it to the screen. So this is like the next step in my evolution. So I'm definitely taking my own advice there insofar as just trying to create as much as I can to get better. As far as business, I don't know if I have any like off the top of my head per se, because like I think that the business side of entertainment kind of just like follows, and you kind of learn how to navigate the business as you become a better creative and as you become a better sort of creator, as you start making stuff. But if someone, it's funny because I do have a side business. Like I have a coffee company that I started, that it's like a roastery that's sold online. but like I don't know the first thing about running a business. Like this again, I'm just like learning as I'm going along. So I'm meeting with other coffee professionals and other people in the industry to share their knowledge from a business perspective. You know, I really understand obviously content and marketing and like storytelling insofar as like marketing a brand, but the logistics of a company are still sort of unbeknownst to me. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I have any pertinent advice for the general business person other than don't let anybody tell you no and keep working hard, I guess. That's my advice, I think.
Yeah, that's a great advice. And also, I know you very stand out even with your appearance and the way you are and just the way you produce content and everything you do. So definitely you have your own thing. Like it's like my brand too. It's not basic blonde. So it's like, be unique, be yourself, never basic. And I guess in your case, being yourself helped you to thrive because you're well known and everyone loves you. Everyone, all the celebrities even ask you to be not behind the scenes now, they ask you to be on camera. And by working with so many celebrities, did you have any challenges and did you learn any lessons from it?
Yeah, I think it can be intimidating working with celebrities at first, you know what I mean? Because it's like you're used to, as like an outsider looking in, we see them on these movies and shows and these things that we invest a lot of time on. You know, it's like I'll watch like I saw 10 Brad Pitt movies or more, you know, before I ever got introduced to him. So you kind of like not idolize, but I have a relationship with them before they do with me, right? Like, because like I'm either listening to their music, watching their music videos, watching their content, and so it takes a second to wrap your brain around like how to approach that because it's very one-sided, and you're very aware of it when you first meet someone. But I think that over time, working with other celebrities, you kind of get used to the fact of like, okay, we're here to do a job, we're here with the same sort of intention to do something together. And then those previous kind of like expectations or predisposition to the relationship go away because I'm like, we're here, we're meant to like do a thing together. Let's like focus on that. It really helps with the GlamBOT because there's such little time. There's no time to sort of like, you know, fan boy or fan girl out over a celebrity. But even earlier in my career, you know, like first time working with Katy Perry or first time working with Pink, there's obviously a history of me knowing who they are and their work and being like a fan, and then coming in and being like, hey, you need to stand over here. It takes a certain level of confidence that's, I think at that level you can kind of fake it until you make it. But I think more importantly, it's just you have to focus on the job at hand, you know what I mean? And like I'm there in that role, be it on the GlamBOT, on the red carpet, telling someone what to do, or being on set, you know, directing a commercial or music video or whatever. You definitely have to like, I guess the lesson in all of this is to find a way / learn a way to kind of like really be confident and like own it in the role that you're in. You know, like maybe you're not directing, but you're doing set dressing or even like PAing or whatever on set, but like know what your role is and then be confident in that role. I think you will then excel at whatever it is you're doing. You know what I mean? So I think that was probably the important lesson in directing celebrities, I would say.
Yeah, it's definitely a great advice, and it can be intimidating to work with celebrities because for someone who's just starting maybe in industry or just like never been around as many celebrities at first might be, a little bit overwhelmed. But as you work there in the industry more and more, then you become way more comfortable with it. So
yeah, I was definitely overwhelmed at first, like don't mistake my words for me not being in a mild panic, first day on set with Katy Perry or whatever. But I think that for me too, I was like, okay, like what do I want my career to be? Like if I envision the best version of my career, what is it? And it's obviously I'm directing big stars and big celebrities, right? So I'm like, okay, if that's part of my goal, if that's like where I want to take my career, I need to find a way to be comfortable with this and be okay with this, because if I'm not, then that goal is never going to be achievable, right? So I was like, knowing that, I was like, okay, yes, you're a little freaked out. You're mildly, you feel like you have imposter syndrome. You're worried about how everything's going to go, but you're here and you can do a good job. Like it would be a shame to let my job not succeed because I was worried about it and like it got ruined because of my own sort of like panic. I was like, that can't happen. So I tried my best to just keep a calm, cool exterior, even if the insides were all panicking. and just like push through and try to do the best job I could, because I knew that the goal for me was to be able to do that job and more to come, right? So I think it was important to kind of like look ahead to stay focused to the task at hand there, you know?
Yeah, so true. It makes sense. Well, obviously, social media plays a huge role in everyone's career today, and it a little bit shifted everyone's careers from what they were doing before, and now everyone can show their skills. They can show up on social media and even go viral and become famous. How did it help you to succeed in your business, and what are your best advice to grow on social media or just thrive and go viral?
Yeah, so it's interesting because social kind of like opened a lot of doors for me in my career. You know, prior to like you know, I've had social for a long time, but like I really sort of like blew up in 2019, 2020 kind of a thing. And prior to that, you know, it's like I'd been directing in LA for 10 years. You know, I had done, as you said, Katy Perry, Pink, done videos for Tinashe, Cher, Britney Spears. Like I had worked a bunch as a director, and I kind of felt like, okay, like I've established my career as a director. I could do social or I could not. I felt confident that like I was working enough that I didn't need to do social to survive in my career. Because it sort of like had been established in some level, you know what I mean? I was consistently working at least. But I kind of thought about the future, and I was like, okay, maybe I don't need to do it today to keep working, right? But like looking ahead in 5 years and 10 years, like where is the relationship going to be with social media in 5 years? And it was very clear to me that like we're only moving more into the digital world, into the digital landscape. Streaming is more going to become a thing. And I was like, I either can do this now when I feel like I don't have to, or I could wait 5 years to when I feel like I then have to, and I'll be behind the curve. So I kind of made this actual discussion was actually in 2017. I remember clearly in 2017 asking myself this question, like, okay, am I gonna like go all in on social or am I not? You know what I mean? And in 2017, I made the decision of like, okay, really take social like it's a facet of your job, where every week I'm spending time on content, making sure I'm pushing stuff out continually. And if I hadn't made that call, I never would have decided to make the behind the scenes for the GlamBOT, which is the thing that sort of made me, you know, more popular on social, because I made this commitment to like, okay, I'm treating social like an aspect of my job as a director now. And so that was like a conscious decision. And then your question was advice for people on social.
How
Right?
to grow their social, how to show
How to
up
grow.
more.
Yeah. That also a good question. I actually almost think it's changing, right? So I think maybe a couple years ago, the advice was generally like consistency, right? Which it still is, but I feel like a couple years ago, you know, say like even 2020, 2021, it was very much like be consistent, post every day, like just make content, make anything and just push it out there. And I think that in that climate a couple years ago, you could find success if you were just consistent, almost like not disregarding the quality, but that's quality's second, and like content volume is first, right? So I think that was the advice. But I think we're in the midst of this changing right now, because at this point, so many people are doing that tactic where they're just volume, that now you need to do another thing. You need to have your quality come up, or find a little niche, or do something a little different that stands you out, because there's so many people doing content every day and there's so much content being made. Obviously, there's like, we're out contenting the eyeballs. There's only so many places. I can only watch one thing at once, right? And I only have so much time in the day to watch content. So it's really important now to like, yes, you obviously still need to be consistent, but you need to stand out in another way. Be it like your production level has gone up, your angle, your perspective is unique, is different, you know what I mean? So I think you need to, if you're creating something, think about what's making you different, and then focus on that and focus on being consistent, because I think that is going to help you stand out. Because again, there's a million people making content every day now. If you just run through that same stuff, you're never going to pop, you're never going to stand out. You got to find a way to be different in a way. And I think the evidence of that is thinking about what content you share with your friends. Like when I share stuff with, aside from silly pet videos, when I share like a piece of content that someone made, it's typically because it's something like novel and unique and new that I've never really seen before, and someone's doing it in a new, different way. and so I want to share it, right? So I think it's like really important to think about that angle. Like, what is the difference in what you're doing compared to someone else, and then try to double down on that. I think that provides you with the best benefit to at least stand out, so someone can see your stuff and then want to share it, right?
Yeah, I guess it applies. It's such an incredible advice because it applies to any industry and in social media as well. So being authentic and being true to yourself will actually help you to succeed. And what helped you to succeed in such a in such a competitive industry, because entertainment industry is so competitive.
Yeah, I mean, I think, tenacity, I think, really helps. Perseverance really helps. I mean, entertainment, you get way more no's than yeses, right? So it's like you try to develop something, you try to make something, you end up making something, along the way, there's a million no's before you get a yes. So you kind of really have to just persevere through that and not take it too personal, because you're always just getting shut down, right? And so, but once you get over that, you can kind of like push through, and like eventually some stuff will start. So I think like tenacity is a thing that really is valuable in entertainment, just simply because of the way it functions and it works. I don't know what else. Like, yeah, just like work. Like I really try to base my career on like working hard and like being a nice person, because like I can control those things. Like I can work hard and I can be nice, because when I hire people or when I work with people, it's like I hire people that I enjoy being around that are also talented, right? So I'm like, okay, well, if I can be that for someone else, then I increase my likelihood of getting jobs. You know what I mean? So I really base my career around that. And life's too short to be working with people that have attitudes. And like I'll take on hard-working person that's less talented than a super talented person that has an attitude, any day of the week, right? So I think like really centering my approach to my career around that, and just finding other good people to work with, and hopefully everybody kind of works together and you all grow together, and that's kind of the most ideal version of building a career.
Yeah, so true. And if someone would like to start in the industry and would like to direct videos and kind of do similar career, kind of have similar career, where should they start and what they should do? I mean, I know you mentioned before, I studied your bio and all that, and you mentioned that you had to do some unpaid work before whenever you were growing. I mean, anyone does, but also on the other hand, you have to draw the line, because sometimes you just might get sucked in this and lower your self-worth and just keep doing unpaid work and still thinking you're still having the imposter syndrome to grow to the next level and do high paid jobs and work with A-list celebrities. And what would you say? What would be your best advice in this case?
Yeah, I think in entertainment, like a lot of it is really based on relationships, right? It's not really who you know, but it's like who you meet almost, right? Like who you work with and who you develop relationships with. So I think that like it is really important to like work with people and develop these working relationships. That is the thing that's going to help you grow. Because like I work with someone, we get along, we have a good time. That person goes on and gets some other job, they'll bring me on, or they'll refer me to someone else that's hiring. So like it's not like who you know per se, but it's who you meet and who you work with. Like work procures more work. And so I think there is value in doing work and working with people and developing those relationships, sometimes at the cost of getting paid. So sometimes it makes sense to do a job that isn't paid to build a relationship or to get a little bit more experience. And that is a facet of working in the entertainment industry. My guideline is often this: if someone is offering me a job where they don't want to pay me, and they say that it'll be good exposure or good for the relationship or good for XYZ reason, the answer is no. If you're telling me that I should do the job for free, the answer is no. If there is a job out there that doesn't pay and I see the value in doing it and I understand why the relationship might be beneficial, why it might be good for me, then I entertain doing it. You know what I mean? But if someone's like offering you like exposure or like, oh, you'll meet XYZ, it's like, don't take that at face value. Analyze it for yourself. If it does make sense to you, then by all means do it. And if not, then don't. You know what I mean? But it's always this like thing where I think it's it can be a facet of it, but it's like you obviously can't get into this trap where you're like working for free all the time. You know what I mean? Like obviously you have to start getting paid and start building your career. But I think that you know, I also try to do at least like one free job a year, like just something that's like a cool project that like I want to lend my creative eye to like just help bring to life. And so I'll usually do like a music video or something just pro bono for free, because I want to, and I think it's good still. So, you know, there should be a percentage of stuff that you reserve for free work. But you know, by and large, you should be getting paid, even if it's like low as you're starting your career, to then have a baseline to like build off and build up to, you know?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I've done like some brand partnerships at the beginning when I was starting my career just because it was a great relationship and because it was great to put on my media kit, but later down the road, of course, I couldn't do that anymore.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, it was like you want to build the resume, you want to build your relationship. So there's definitely almost more value as you're starting off, you know, to do some like pro bono work. But then at some point, it doesn't. If you don't see the value in it anymore, then
Yeah.
you're like, you know, your requirements sort of change. I still think there's probably some jobs out there that would be beneficial for you to do for free, and there's still jobs that would be beneficial for me to do for free, but they
Yeah.
become few and far between as your career grows, which I think is a good thing, right? But you know,
Mhm.
so it's just kind of how it goes.
Yeah, so true. And also on the other hand, no one should actually not to value their own work, so they shouldn't actually do that, for free.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, no one's. I mean, I'm just trying to think of like how free jobs come to be now for me in my career. It's usually just like there's a project that's really cool, and we all just know there's no money, and you're like, do you want to do this or not? I'm like, okay, yeah, sure. You know, it's not like. It's also a huge red flag if there's like a job that's clearly a job, and then someone's just kind of like, oh no, you should just do it for free. Like there's instances that are clearly taking advantage of the creative person, and so it becomes really valuable to be able to identify those and tell them to go F off completely. But now usually it just is an organic project that seems really cool that just doesn't have funding yet, and like, hey, we can just work on this if we want to, or if we don't, we don't have to. You know, there's no pressure like, oh, you should do this because of XYZ. It's just like something to come across my plate that seems cool, and we're all kind of like, are we working on this or are we not? You know, so it all kind of varies.
Yeah, I agree. And you've been such a creative person and working on so many projects. Where do you get your inspiration from?
That's a good question. I mean, I think like inspiration kind of just comes from everywhere. I think where I get my motivation from is a more appropriate question, and that comes and goes as it does for everybody. You know, like some days you're not terribly motivated to work, some days you're super on the grind. It's a thing that ebbs and flows. Same with inspiration, you know, like it could be anything. It could be a conversation I have with a friend that just like inspires me to work hard. Like hearing other people like, you know, bust their ass and work hard inspires me to work hard. You know, like hearing someone have this, I get a cool job, or like have this cool opportunity, or just be excited about life, it really gets me kind of excited for them, and thus gets excited for me, you know. So I think like all of those, you know, good feeling things have this propensity to spread amongst individuals. So the more you're sort of exposing yourself to people that are excited about life and happy, you end up being sort of excited about life and happy too, and thus more inspired and thus more motivated. So it all kind of really helps.
Yeah, it's amazing. And by you being behind the scenes at Grammys and Oscars and all the events, do you see anything what others like don't see? And you can say like these things are so obvious and they should be improved, or this is such a mess, like
Well, yes. I mean, the thing that I see that nobody really sees is just how much of, I mean, it's sort of, it's not inaccurate, but it's not super accurate to say of like how much of a mess the red carpet is. Like, it's just so crazy. There's just people everywhere, people interviewing everywhere, cameras everywhere, lights everywhere. And I think the average viewer doesn't get to see that. Like, they'll see one interview, like by the time someone walks over to do a little press interview, they see a little snippet. The celebrity is like very focused on the interviewer, and there's busyness in the background, but you're very connected into like what's happening right there. Even with the GlamBOT, like when I'm talking to someone, their attention is very much on what we're doing. It seems very connected and very present. But as soon as they walk away, people are screaming at them. We're screaming for the next person to come in. It's just like this insane world. And it's just like, you know, the Oscars, it's like half a mile long. There's just endless press outlets, endless people, endless publicists. And it's just like this whirlwind crazy environment. So I think that's the thing that I see that you generally don't get a sense of when you're just watching little clips and snippets. I don't know how to prove that, but I do see it, and it is sort of astounding to me when you're there. You're like, oh, it is absolutely insane here, and just crazy, but a lot of fun, but just a crazy environment. And yeah, I don't know if that comes through in all the media that gets published.
Yeah, like you mentioned, because on TV they only show like a segment from one side and one camera, not like what's going on around. And there is always a lot of people when you
Yeah,
see the
yeah.
other cameras going. What's next for you in store? What are you working on? Any exciting projects or anything is coming up? Or are you creating any exciting projects yourself?
Yeah. I have a bunch of things in the work as per usual. Also, as per usual, there's a bunch of things that you can't discuss before they're actually officially happening. But you know, it is exciting for me. Like Oscars was just like 2 weeks ago now, so there is sort of like two phases of my career where you know, like award season is very obviously GlamBOT focused, shooting all the events, making all the content, pushing all that stuff out, and then sort of the off season, which is kind of now until the end of summer, which I get to spend a lot more time like developing stuff, doing other, you know, directing projects and other on-camera stuff. So, you know, like I hosted a fashion show in London earlier this year for Montclair, which was a really fun experience of me on camera doing some hosting. So I want to do more on-camera stuff. There's a couple of things in the works there. Obviously, more directing, more slow-mo, just like a ton of more stuff. And as I mentioned earlier, you know, more writing. So it feels really good to get back to this creative outlet of like writing and creating, trying to direct some narrative stuff, be it short film, TV show, episodic, or narrative feature. So those things are all in the works as well.
That's amazing. Are you expanding to Europe, to Cannes Film Festival, Venice, and all that? Far events?
I went to I went to Lions in Con last year, which was really fun. I went with Meta. I would love to go again. So that'll be up in June. I'm traveling to Europe in next month, well in April, for a little bit. So that'll be really fun. So all of those things are like options. We're talking about a bunch of stuff. Nothing is set in stone. But hopefully I'll be at some more events coming soon.
That's amazing. And where can our listeners find you, your social handles?
Yeah, so you can find me pretty much on my name, at Cole Walliser, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, YouTube. Those are all Twitter. Those are all my main platforms. Yeah, find me there. Also, colewalliser.com and cafecoleon.com is my coffee. So check all that stuff out.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Cole, for being my guest and sharing your experience with us. Thank you.
Of course, thank you for having me.